And I know that while our thoughts are important, they're secondary to folks who are here in the audience and folks who are across the city who have been fighting for years in this fight. Folks like these brothers that I just met here with organizations that have been fighting for reparations and so many others. So one thing you can always count on, if you come up to me after this meeting, you can get my email address. If there's something that you want to make sure that we discuss, I will happily bring it up to the rest of the committee because that's what I'm about. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Janice Hazel, and I live in District 7, and I was appointed by Council Member Fred Durhal. And I have been involved in the reparations movement. Anita, I'm going to say it. 41 years. 41 years, yes. Starting with my time working for Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, when New Yorkers were trying to get reparations off of the ground, but no one had an appetite for it. Fast forward from 1982, 1983, after Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm retired, and I went to work for Congressman John Conyers, who was my congressman from the city of Detroit. No one had an appetite for reparations, not in the Congress, with only 25 Black members of Congress at that point in time. However, Congressman John Conyers, he had an appetite for it on the federal level. However, back in the earlier days, 82, 83, 84, when I first started working in the halls of Congress, we were trying to get the Martin Luther King holiday bill passed, which Congressman Conyers introduced for 15 years after the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He introduced it 4 days after he was assassinated. Dr. King was Congressman Conyers is the only person that Dr. King ever endorsed for a campaign, which was John Conyers. So fast forward to the mid-90s, when we started, and I'll say the American people, Black people started getting an appetite for reparations. I was put as point person in Congressman Conyers to do the early research and pulling together information on what could this look like. And as our esteemed co-chair, Reverend Watson, mentioned, our own Detroit reparations Raymond Jenkins, he was always pressing in the background for reparations. And so it was after the research that we did that we pulled together the draft and developed the reparations for African Americans legislation. And I'll never forget, on November 11th, Veterans Day of 1989, it was a Saturday, and Congressman Conyers was a Korean War veteran, but he was in his office working, and he called in all the staff, and anyone who didn't come in was fired. I made it through that draft because I happened to be in Washington that weekend. I didn't go to New York, where I typically did on weekends. And we pressed forward, put that legislation together because Congressman Conyers wanted it introduced before the end of the 101st congressional session. So we introduced it on November 20th, 1989, 34 years ago. At that point in time, I was flying back and forth to Detroit. The Detroit City Council had no appetite for a local reparations bill, nor did the mayor, I have to say. So we pressed on at the national level, and we founded organizations such as NCOBRA and others that followed, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations. 34 years ago, that is, and it still has not moved forward. It's done something in the House Judiciary Committee, but it hasn't gone to the floor. And those of us on the federal scene are calling for this President Biden to establish a federal commission by executive order. So that's just a backdrop. So for those 41 years that I've been working at the national level, I moved back home to Detroit, and I'm very glad that this council had an appetite for reparations on the local level. So as the daughter of freedom riders out of Alabama, I am very, very committed to this and hope to lend any information and assistance and perseverance that I can to our task force here in Detroit so that we can provide some repair to our residents who have been harmed greatly. And all of us who went through the Detroit school system were harmed. all of us who live in the city of Detroit were harmed. And I live just 5 blocks from Burwood, where there is not an 8-foot wall, 6-foot concrete wall, unlike Burwood at the 8 Mile. But it's a constant reminder every day when I drive out of my driveway that if not for the pressure that my parents and those of us who are here, our parents, put for social justice, I wouldn't be able to live in the house that I'm living in now, because we could not move beyond, because of redlining, beyond Burwood on the west side of Detroit. So I'm here and I'm anxious to hear what other Detroiters want to see in a reparations legislation, reparations bill, and reparations to move forward. Thank you.
All right. Hi, I'm Anita Bell. I'm seeking the Green Party's nomination for President of the United States. I'm excited to work with other political parties, including the party of the mule, the Democrats, to redeem America. Like Reverend Joanne said, reparations is a debt owed, but specifically a debt owed to soldiers who saved America. I'm the president of the Reparations Labor Union and the female co-chair of the Detroit chapter of NCOBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America. I'm the queen of the sky, married to the king of Mars in Exodus to Mars, an Afrofuturistic comedy about Black Martians who are reparations superheroes. I'm the daughter of the late and great Hugh and Thelma Bell. I'm the former attorney and plaintiff in a Black genocide lawsuit that has been aggrieved to the United Nations. I accuse the United States of violating my civil and human rights through COINTELPRO sabotaging of my lawsuits that sued the CIA for deliberately poisoning segregated Black neighborhoods, and that Black genocide is still happening today through drugs and poisoned water. I thank Councilman Coleman A. Young for nominating me as an at-large member of this historic task force. My inherited wealth would have been a house that my mother lived in for 42 years, but she lost that house in 2015 due to forfeiture after Detroit overtaxed her. She lost her life during the pandemic. That house is now worth $95,000. So, to me, just like Keith said, this is personal. I propose this body recommend an eviction, foreclosure, and forfeiture moratorium so that Blacks don't lose their homes to gentrification and genocide before reparations are paid. I also propose that as part of economic development, Detroit generate reparations from a melanin bank, because our blood plasma, melanin, is being used in vaccines and cancer treatments, but Blacks and Indians, let's talk about them too, aren't being compensated. And last but not least, as a teacher, I recommend we pay our children to learn in school. It's a new day, y'all. Otherwise, we're losing our children. They can make more money on their cell phone, selling drugs or their bodies through sex trafficking. Reparations can save our elders because that's the pension that they long deserved. But we're going to lose a generation of our children if we don't pay reparations now.
And Ms. Sydney online.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Sydney Calloway, and I'll be serving the city of Detroit at large. I was appointed by Council Member Mary Waters, and I'm absolutely honored to be a part of this task force. I'm really looking forward to paying homage to those who came before me and to really amplifying the voices in my community as we explore what reparations looks like to the residents of Detroit and what it means to bring these dreams to fruition. I'm hoping to work towards offering innovative yet sustainable ideas, particularly focused on tackling the housing crisis and any other forms of reconciliation between this municipality and its people. And I aim to stay engaged in the neighborhoods, ensuring that their voices are accurately represented. So thank you all so much for being here this evening, and I can't wait to get this work started.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for indulging us. I just think it's important for the viewing audience to know who the people are you have working on your behalf to get these reparations. And I realize, like, I have a problem taking up space. I don't like talking about myself, but you should also know who I am. Lauren Hood founded the Institute for Afro-Urbanism, which is a think tank which proposes Afrocentric ways of doing community development. I also currently chair the City Planning Commission. As most of the battles for equity are fought in the community development realm. I went to our director of the Planning Commission and asked if we could do something on reparations. He said that your councilwoman, Mary Sheffield, is already working on it. So that's how I got here, and that's who I am. Thank you. I wanted to take a moment and see if any of my fellow task force members had amendments to the agenda. Is there anything that people would like to add for discussion that isn't already outlined? Okay, and also a note to our viewing audience, we don't have to abide by the Open Meetings Act, but we decided that we would. So a lot of the way this meeting flows is how City Council operates and how commissions operate, just so that we have a means of structuring how we make decisions and how we function. So I will accept a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved and supported. All in favor, respond with the sign of aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, great. We've approved our first agenda. Also on the agenda, we wanted to add a reading of the resolution and the ballot initiative. We need everyone to understand, including ourselves, what we are here to do, and more importantly, what we are not here to do. So I would like to invite Tom Stevens from the Legislative Policy Division to read the resolution and the ballot initiative. So for those that don't know, LPD, the Legislative Policy Division, those are the lawyers that work for City Council. I wanted a legal voice to read this to make everything clear. Go ahead.
The operative parts of the ballot and the operative language from the ballot initiative asked, should the City of Detroit establish a reparations committee to make recommendations for housing and economic development programs that address historical discrimination against the Black community in Detroit? The vote was, I think, about 80% yes. Mm-hmm. Council's subsequent resolution setting up the structure of the task force. If you bear with me a minute, I'm sure I'll find it somewhere here.
Take your time.
Resolved that the Reparations Task Force shall submit a written report of its findings and recommendations to the City Council no later than the date that is 18 months from the date of the first meeting of the Reparations Task Force. In other words, today. And the other issues, I think, are for the task force to decide themselves. That's been my understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so also on the agenda, we have setting some expectations. So I just wanted to make clear for people, again, that this process has never been done before. This is a new idea. This is a new task force. And we want it to be, the process to be as inclusive as possible. So a lot of the decisions that we make on how we operate and what we do is going to be in these public meetings and as a response to your public comment. So I just wanted to make that piece clear. Now I'm going to ask Maurice, because he was the note taker last time, if you could read the what's been done to date. So we had 2 internally facing Zoom meetings before this public meeting. So I just want to read a synopsis of what went on in those 2 meetings.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So there were basically 3 decisions that were made in our 2 meetings. Sort of further indicating we're at the beginning of this process. One was the budget request, which we heard from Council President Sheffield was approved for $350,000 total. The budget is going to be used for things like securing facilities for these meetings in various places around the city, bringing in experts, conducting research and other technical assistance needs for the meetings.
Will you pull the microphone closer to you?
Sure. We also started the process of establishing subcommittees for the task force. The 4 that were discussed already are public education, economic development, housing, and research. And we talked about the frequency of the meetings and the format. So to reiterate, the meetings are open to the public, generally on Tuesdays monthly, and we'll make sure that advance notice is given for the meetings. Our intention is for the meetings to move around the city so that we can further engage the public who can't make it down here. And the task force members will recommend the locations to host the meetings that we hope to all feature accessibility, wheelchair and other accessibility, AV capacity, and the ability to hold about 50 plus people. And that was the only 3 key decisions that are made so far, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any additions from my fellow task force members? Anything that's been discussed that we want to share with the public? All right, that was comprehensive enough, I suppose. And next on the agenda, we can begin public comment. Do we have, where's the microphone? Yeah.
You have on here setting expectations.
I thought I did that. Just briefly, did you want to add something else, Bernard?
Oh, you mean when we made our introductions, that's when that was? Because I thought that was going to get into what we're expecting to, how we're going to operate.
Yeah.
And just
would you?
What we expect to how the process would go, majority rule, or just our process here of how we're going to function.
Okay. Did you want that noted on the record? Did you have ideas or did you want it up for discussion?
Well, I thought it was on the agenda, and I thought that's what there was going to be, some discussion taking place around that.
Okay, we can. Do we want to have discussion about that? I just said it was going to be open based on what we hear, and we'd be making decisions as we move along. Well, let's have discussion. What's up, Keith?
We can do it after we go through that. I don't have no problem with that. We can do it after we can finish the other agenda items, and we can go back to that.
The only remaining item is public comments, right, Madam Chair?
The thinking was
Now,
that
I threw it out there. If other members do not want to talk about that, I'm okay. But
I think we should, but I think the
agenda,
thinking
thought
was
that's
we would hear from folks first, and then based on what we heard, make some decisions. But we can discuss it now if that's what we're here for.
Is there anything that might be glaring as to what we can't do, so that maybe that's where some people have a question of what are our expectations? Would we be saying $5 million to everybody like they did in San Francisco? Or would we just say, hey, get your land bank house? We might want to help with understanding what could be. What could be.
If I can speak on this?
Yeah.
Just talk.
Okay. Go ahead, Alan.
There are a lot of expectations associated with this process that we're going to have to discuss and that we need to discuss, and that would be essential for the work that we do. Did we address them all initially? No, we just laid out the legislation, what those expectations are, and a general framework for what we're going to do. But we absolutely need to have that. We need to outline what some of those things are. We need to get on an agenda, and we need to have a discussion on it. Whether that happens now or later, I'll leave that to the body to decide. But I think that's the way to go.
Go ahead, Keith. You sure?
Madam Chair. So I just want a clarification from Member Parker. I think that the format of hearing from the public first to get the scope of other things that folks are interested in makes sense for the type of expectations in terms of the things this body will discuss in addition to the things in the legislation. My understanding from Member Parker was talking about actual decision-making mechanisms within the task force and other things like that, which is that right?
Well,
Point of clarification.
Yeah, my thought was that we would come to some decision how we're going to function. I know that it was recommended that we would meet monthly on Tuesday, but I don't think that was a decision. We had some discussion about that, and quite honestly, we could make a decision in that format. until we came here. So I just thought some of those procedural things might need to be discussed and decided upon.
Yes.
But I'm comfortable. We want to move that to the next meeting and just deal with public comments today. I'm okay with that. I just saw it on the agenda, so I just thought that's where they're going to speak.
Yeah. Thank you, Bernard. Go ahead, Keith.
You know, this is a task force. It's not a legislative body. Okay. So, you know, I think we're going to be working out of committees. I think we should hold that, Bernard, to another meeting. A substantive meeting so we can get a better understanding on how we're going to approach this mission. So I'm in agreement with you, but I think we should just wait after this meeting and to another meeting and talk about committee assignments and stuff.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
No, duly noted, Bernard. We'll add that to the next agenda. I think it warrants a deeper discussion, but I think we just wanted to get some comments and see where people's thoughts are that might help guide our process. So I'm going to go ahead and call the first speaker. I'll actually call the first three names so that people can line up. Do we have a microphone? Oh, yes, there's a microphone. Okay, Jerry Goldberg, Milton Hudson, and Cecily McClellan. And you get 2 minutes. Paris, are you pulling up the timer? Okay. That's 2 minutes, 120 seconds.
Excuse me, Mr. Goldberg.
Sorry,
Can you turn the mic on if you just press that
press the
button in front of you?
Yep, that's right there. Yep.
Oh, I see it's on now. Okay. I'll start again. So start my 2 minutes. My name is Jerry Goldberg. I'm a longtime resident of the city of Detroit, an activist, and as a lawyer was active in fighting the massive mortgage foreclosures that devastated our city and intervened in the bankruptcy to challenge the bank's role in destroying our legacy for the retirees. When I heard about this task force, I was thrilled because there are many aspects to the struggle for reparations dating back to slavery and the role banks played in the appalling kidnapping and trade of human beings from Africa. But it also presents an opportunity to demand that the banks and financial institutions pay reparations for their more recent crimes against humanity. Almost 10 million families lost their homes due to mortgage foreclosures from 2006 to 2014. This displacement occurred due to the widespread, deliberately predatory and criminal subprime lending practices directed against African Americans and other people of color. And no city was as hard hit as Detroit by this. We were the leading city for Black home ownership. But in 5 years' time, we had 65,000 families lose their homes to mortgage foreclosure, every one of which was due to a predatory, racist criminal loan. And really the tax foreclosures that followed were a result of the banks overvaluing the properties and leading to the tax foreclosures. As a result, since 2005, 139,000 of Detroit's 384,000 homes were foreclosed and eliminated. The city's population was reduced from 1 million people in 2000 to 637,000 people today, with a bulk of that reduction from 2005 to 2010. The same banks that were involved in the predatory lending practices that destroyed our neighborhoods, each one of them was involved in the slave trade. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citizens Bank, Citibank, Wells Fargo, they not only were foreclosures then, but they were slave traders back then. We should be demanding that these banks repay our city for the $4 billion in predatory loans and the destruction of our neighborhoods. 2 minutes. That
Thank you, sir.
Used
Thank you.
in the hands of the people to rebuild the city, and we hope this becomes a focus of this task force. And I would offer to lend my
Mr.
expertise in this area.
Thank you. Yes, offer accepted. Taking a note.
Please, let's stay within the 2 minutes.
Go ahead. Is this Milton Hudson? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hudson.
My name is Milton Hudson. I'm a little bit different than some of the people in the audience in that I can't tell you that I'm a native Detroiter. I can tell you that I had a great aunt. We call her Aunt Hyde, but her name is Floyd Tukes. She was born in 1895. And about 4 generations of Georgians, including 2 of my brothers, which 2 of them still here now, were brought up under her wings, just like a lot of other families in Detroit. I came to Detroit after graduating from high school in 1970 and have been excited about this city ever since. Coleman A. Young was the mayor. I used to see this young lady when I was here in recent time. You still got the fire, Ms. Watson, Councilperson Watson. I worked on Dave Bean campaign. Now I'm saying all that to say that I'm as passionate about Detroit and Detroiters than probably anybody else in here. My brother is almost 80 years old. He worked 45 years Detroit Diesel, and these are the people in Detroit that are supporting the infrastructure and they get nothing in return. So I'm from Oglethorpe, Georgia. I understand some of the consequences of slavery. As I believe Sister Watson said, one thing about Abe Lincoln, and I've heard black people say he was the greatest president. One thing he did in the notion that to save the Union, there's reparation all over the South. The whites, and I'm not a racist, but they got their due reparation. I said 3 things on that card. I said that let's be relentless, and this is not a job for the task force or the grassroots people of Detroit to sit idly by in 18 months. I also said, let's be strategic. I heard the back and forth about expectations. I think we got to work both relentlessly, and there's got to be a strategy. The other thing I said, it's late.
Oh, sorry. That's your 2-minute mark.
It's late. It's 2 minutes. But
Thank you.
she said reparation now, and that's.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Hi. Cecily McCullough.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. 40 acres, $50 in a mule. That was guaranteed after slavery. We know today that would be in the trillions of dollars. But as we
lean in.
focus specifically on the city of Detroit, and as it's been mentioned by many of you, Black Bottom. I am born and raised and lived in Black Bottom. We were forced to move, provided very little compensation. And for those that did own their homes, they couldn't buy a new home anywhere else in the city of Detroit. Now they're talking about infilling and trying to build in 375. That is an area that needs to have your focused attention. Black folks in the city of Detroit need to be compensated, provided jobs, provided the opportunity to move in that area if it is infill. Additionally, I'm very much concerned about the foreclosures that occurred in 2008. As Mr. Goldberg indicated, there were thousands of foreclosures. And after that, you had an assessment that was done on the population, and with the prices of homes falling grossly. And many of us were over-assessed on the property. We can be compensated for that. Additionally, also during the bankruptcy, retirees were forced to have a clawback. And that clawback was from the period of 2014 to 2004 to 2013. Just interestingly, that's the same time period when Coleman Young, you would have got 30 years after 1974. And those persons had to pay 15.5%. They took back out of our pension that annuity. The city of Detroit should compensate. It should be compensated for all those retirees that lost that 15.5 that were selectively selected during the bankruptcy to pay those millions of dollars. And now they're having to live on less dollars because of that compensation. Reparations now.
Thank you, Ms. McCollum. Okay, I'll call the next 3 speakers, Portia Edwards, Anthony Williams, and Shannon Stayert. I'm sorry, what is it? Slayer.
Good afternoon. My name is Portia Edwards, and I am here to uplift my first cousin, third removed, Miss Mary Olivia Ross. If you know who she is, she was the first lady at Shiloh Greater Baptist Church, which is the second largest Black church here in the city of Detroit, in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the work that she did. She actually had to fight city council to make sure that they did not tear down their church that was built. So what they did was they built Brewster projects around the church. And that is why that church is standing there, because of my cousin's work. So me being here today should be no surprise to anyone. Okay, I am my ancestors, right? And we're gonna talk about whose ancestors we are. We are Black Americans. We are mulattoes, we are mestizoes, we are Black Indians, of Blackfoot, Cherokee, Chickasaw, and you name it. That's who we are. So when you're talking about reparations, you're talking about a specific group of people who were harmed, and especially harmed here in the city of Detroit. With this being the last stop on the Underground Railroad, we know better. We know better. So what I'm saying is, and I know we have some extraordinary minds here on the council, say, do your homework. Do your homework and do all of it, okay? There is no cheat sheet to this. Obviously, this is the first time that we're doing this, but we appreciate the work that you are doing. I also wanted to mention with regards to Evanston, somebody brought up Evanston. That is a no-no, okay? I had a copy of the housing application for Evanston, and no, it has to be specific. Start using the right language. When you say Detroiters, say Black American Detroiters. Say Black American Detroiters, okay? Because what we're not gonna do is allow other people to shoehorn their interest into our reparations. It's time to cut the check, right? And cut it now.
Thank you. Anthony William Lloyd Jr.
To the Detroit Reparations Task Force, executive and non-executive members. I'm here to express my strong objection to the Detroit Reparations Task Force ballot initiative. I believe that there are organizational conflicts of interest, inappropriateness, and continuing corruption, and are prejudicial to the inheritance and generational wealth of Black Americans who are reclassified as African Americans and whose families have a strong lineage tracing back to the chattel slavery era during 1619 and 1865. It is imperative that accurate federal documentations and substantial proof of progenitors are provided, while excluding DNA testing to determine those directly affected by the wrongs, inflicting hardships, injustices, simply unfair causes of distress, and improper treatments. Therefore, I'm calling on all of the politicians at the local, state, and federal levels of government to critically advise and inform the president that lineage-based reparations is encouraging sustainable economic growth critical to the nation's infrastructure and the disbursement of payments to Black Americans, revenue collection to raise standards of living and financial assets passed by one generation of family to another. Critically advise and inform the Federal Reserve System to perform general functions to promote effective operations of the United States economy and more generally, Black Americans, fostering payments and settlement system safety and efficiency through services to the banking industry and the United States government that facilitate US dollar transactions and payments. 3, critically advise and inform the United States Department of Treasury to preserve influential and comprehensive participation relating to economic prosperity, ensuring financial security of Black Americans. Please regard the examination of what I'm brought to you today in correlation to the HR 40 bill, the Detroit Reparations Task Force, the history of the Congressional Black Caucus, the history of the Democratic Party, and a sustained study of reparations for Black Americans in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon Slayer.
Thank you. Good afternoon to the Detroit Reparations Task Force and fellow Detroiters here, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. June 23rd, 1963 remains an important date in Detroit history. This year, it will be 60 years that Dr. Martin Luther King organized a walk here with a crowd of more than 100,000 people down Woodward Avenue. It was called the Walk to Freedom, and it was to honor the 20th anniversary of the Detroit race riots here in 1943, in which over 24 people were killed and many more were injured. It ended at Cova Arena, where Dr. King delivered a powerful speech to Detroiters 2 months before his I Have a Dream speech later in Washington. During his speech, He solicited help from Detroiters to lend a hand to the civil rights struggle in the South, but he talked specifically about 3 areas here in the North in which we were specifically discriminated against. And that's in the area of employment discrimination, in the area of housing discrimination as discussed today, and as Martin Luther King Junior Senior High School graduate, the area of de facto segregation in public schools. It is my hope that this task force in considering redress and repair, that it specifically delineates and focuses on a specific lineage that was harmed, Black Americans. This should not be an all reparations matter initiative. Any initiative for Black Americans should be imagined by those same Black Americans of this Detroit that were specifically for Black Americans harmed by the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, the war on drugs, domestic terrorism, unfair housing, and education disparities. It is my strong belief that in addition to delineation, that cash payments should be on the table. Like Martin Luther King said later, in reference to reparations for farmers in the South, we're coming to get our check. Thank you.
Thank you. I will call the next 3, Kari Frazier, Brenya Griffin, and Mr. Karan Hamiel.
Mama. All right. So, Detroit City has the largest population of Black Americans in America. The resilience, brilliance, ingenuity of American Black Detroiters has changed the world. Futures collective of the American Black family here are still stifled. The inhumane, discriminatory, exploitive nature of enslavement of our ancestors has positioned many of us striving to find triumph through tragedy and trauma. The act of enslaving American Black people is an injustice that must be addressed. Currently, Detroit City is providing tax incentives for dozens of developments throughout our city. These tax incentives are provided to developers in the understanding that these business ventures will attract more business, spur more economic growth, and in turn, heighten the quality of life for Detroiters. Reparations for American Black Detroiters will not only accomplish the aforementioned goals, but also begin a road to repair the severed, oppressive reality that we as Black people in America face for living in America. I propose a blanket tax on all gross profits, every dollar that comes in, 3.13%, every dollar. You're a white man, like so many of these white businesses. And if you happen to be a Black man that receives some money from this, 3.13% of gross income needs to go to a reparations fund. This can be something we can move on, and it'll be local, because we definitely giving out a whole lot of money to a whole lot of people. I'm Kari Frazier, a Detroit resident, proud Northwestern graduate, like John Conyers, and also the maker, founder of Detroit is Different Network for more messages like this and other things. So, in honor of Reparations Ray Jenkins, let's make this a reality. Not hopeful, this is the expectation that can happen. And we have all the tax incentive money to get this. They say they're doing good business. Let's hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brenya Griffin. I am a teacher at Detroit International Academy for Young Women. I know a lot of people have been passionate. I'm coming with more questions. So if you can just have that rhetorical question thing. How is the committee going to be addressing accessibility and availability of affordable quality housing? I find that in Detroit, that's just something that we can't get. And I have heard all of the things about what has happened in the city. My second question is, how is this committee going to deal with the impact of police brutality that happens in our community, especially in areas and new people? The system is very brutal. Actually, the United States says that Detroit police are the most deadly in the United States. And thirdly, I want to know how this committee is going to address the disparities and the inequalities and the inequities of education in our schools. Right now, Whitmer had promised inequity for us, but the truth is our children are getting $3,000 less than most children in Michigan. So in closing, I want to say that white supremacy is really not a white issue because white supremacy can exist without white people. So please, let's go ahead and see what we can do so that we can increase our accessibility and availability to better housing, help with the police brutality issue, as well as increase our children's availability to education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, panel. Good evening, Detroit. My name is Karan Hammy. I'm CEO of Money Man Lending and CEO of Galaxy Construction Group here in Detroit. And as a Detroiter, I sit here every day and I watch other cultures conduct business in our neighborhood and in our communities with parasitic intentions and practices. I want y'all to think about in your report, I want y'all to make sure y'all structure some kind of policy that brings control to the neighborhood business back to the people of the community, because that's what we need. We need everybody to stop coming in our community, taking our money and going back to their countries. We need to build up our own selves. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will call the next three. So Isra, I have one name, Isra, ISRA. Isra, Dennis Boatwright, and Nubia Walford Port.
Good evening, panel. I don't have no long, drawn-out speech. I'm just here to support basically what slavery has did to all of us as a people, not to mention even us trying to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, as they say, coming out of slavery. As an African-American, from 1865 to 1910, we led the world in technology without reparations. And they destroyed it with other laws that affected us post-slavery, not only during slavery, to make sure that we can't come up, because as a melanated people, we the most powerful people on the planet. I understand what we can do. And I'm here as a supporter, and I agree with everything else that's been said. So we know what got to be done. So let's just do it. Yep.
Thank you.
My name is Dennis Boatwright, and I'm the director of the Center for Pan-African Studies. This think tank is based in Detroit, and our focus is on international relations, foreign policy, Pan-Africanism, and of course, reparations. I just want to thank the City Council, as well as the Detroit Task Force on Reparations, for having the courage and the consciousness to even call on such a meeting. Because we know, and I want to bring up Queen Mother Moore's name as well, because to be quite frank, we're here because of Queen Mother Moore never gave up on the notion of reparations, nor did Marcus Garvey. That's why we're here. And I have to admit, who has been in the forefront in making Queen Mother Moore's ideals as a reality is in Cobra. They're the ones that been at the forefront. Because I will tell you this, really, before the summer of 2020, when we had the protests after George Floyd's killing, when I would mention reparations to people, they would look like it was some sort of absurdity. Now it is very fashionable to say we're for reparation. It's very safe now. So I want to take my hat off to Cobra and people like Queen Mother Moore and Marcus Garvey, who knew that wasn't an absurdity. I also want to thank Sister Janice for inviting me here and sending me information on what it was about, and Dr. Robinson, who I feel that is a very qualified man, just based upon the book he had in hand by Dr. Ronald Walters, who's one of my favorite people. So I just want to offer the assistance of the Center for Pan-African Studies. However we're needed, we are surely willing to help out this task force. And you guys are doing a great job, and let's keep going. Let's not blow it. Let's not make this another missed opportunity.
Thank you.
Greetings, panel. I'm very happy to be here and see that you are doing the work specifically for the city of Detroit, for the people of Detroit, Africans born in America right here in Detroit. I have a couple of different questions for you. Hopefully you can address them in some form, some way, maybe in this meeting or in the future. How is this exactly how much, some clarity on how much money is involved and how will it be dispersed? I know that's definitely on the table for discussion, but is it clear? Is it 283 million? Is it 500 million? How much exactly is the state and the city been allocated for this committee? Also, redlining, auto insurance, housing discrimination has been talked about. Dismantling of recorders court, which affected people's income, but also caused many of our youth, many of the people from our community to be shuttled straight to prison, whereas the recorder's court was actually a buffer for that. Loss of income, my family in particular, my father was a bail bondsman, so he lost a lot of income with the dismantling of recorder's courts. Taxes, city and county should be eliminated for seniors due to all of their trauma, mistreatment, and economic stagnation from the city of Detroit. Business startup grants, I'm sure this been talked about it, and also further scrutinizing of these businesses that come into our neighborhoods that do not clean up, that do not give anything back to the community. They are not obeying any ordinances in the city. That should really be a part of our reparations as far as, are we fining these businesses so that we can get these tax money and also force them into certain things that they should do for our community. My name is Nubia Wardford Polk, and I don't have a big speech either, but thank you for letting me address your committee.
Thank you, Nubia. All right, I will call the next three. Attorney Norrell Hemphill, Heal Detroit Now, and Brooke Bowers. But then we have online.
Good afternoon. My name is Attorney Norrell Hemphill, and I have the honor and privilege of serving with We the People of Detroit, fighting every day for water affordability in Detroit. I'm going to take this time just to tell my story. I graduated from Lewis Cass Technical High School in 2002. At that time, I saw what was happening to the schools as they were closing and ramping up to close. I went away to college, came back. It was not able to find a job in Detroit. So I had to go to the suburbs. When I had my daughter, there were no good schools in Detroit. So to give her a quality education, she had to go to the suburbs, where she was subjected to the racist practices of white people, to them not having the cultural competencies to deal with Black people, although they benefit by having our children in their schools because our children teach them humanity. When we focus on reparations, we must start with education. We can't do anything or fix anything unless we educate our children. Housing, quality housing, affordable housing. That doesn't have to do with the AMI because we know that's overinflated due to what's happening in downtown Detroit. The Detroit pensioners. We know the contrived bankruptcy stole from the Detroit pensioners. We must make them whole. And the families of those who passed after having their money stolen must be repaired as well. Healthcare. I remember when I was on WIC and we went to Herman Kiefer for our appointments. Now, where do people go? How do people get through to Wayne Metro, who is the community action agency, who's over all of the programs for low-income residents, like the Detroit Lifeline Plan?
Thank you, ma'am.
Over and over
Sorry, your
again.
2 minutes is up.
Yes, ma'am. I'll finish my point and then I'll leave. Who over and over again are given these very, very, very high contracts to assist Detroiters with different programs, who take these large fees of 10 to 12% And then Detroiters, sir, I understand that. And then Detroiters are not even able to get through to get the services that we deserve.
Thank you, Ms.
Reparations now.
Thank you.
Folks, we gotta be respectful of people's time. We got online folks want to come in too.
We want to be fair and give everybody the same amount of time, 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm about to be quick. I'm Lakeisha Harris with Heal Detroit. I have a home health organization now, Heal Detroit Now. Ron Daniels, the State of Black World Conference. I went there back in 2000. John Conyers helped me go there. He paid for all my fundraising tickets. I was introducing Cobra then through you. And my thing is now, if they get this money, they need some type of mental counseling. And the reason why I say that is because my neighbors next door, I keep giving them. And they keep trash still in my yard. And I keep telling them, okay, just put your trash can in the back, because Detroit is filthy. I mean, it's just, where you go, it's just trash everywhere. That's what I'm seeing. I don't know what you all see. And so I got to thinking, I was supposed to be on this with you all, but so it was interference one meeting. And then the next meeting, my phone didn't work. My Wi-Fi didn't work. Nothing. But anyways, that's you understand what I'm saying. But I feel like they need some type of counseling first before they are getting anything, because we have strong mental issues that we need to deal with first before any money gets in our hands.
Thank you. Yeah, just last two.
Hi, my name is Brooke Darcel Bowers. I'm with We the Youth of Detroit, and I want to talk about my experience as an activist and as a youth going to schools in Detroit. It's insane how underfunded they are. Like, they know what happens when you give power to Black people. Knowledge is power. We need to give money to our school systems. First, when people were, like my mom, when she was younger, there were schools in our community. There were places to go to in our community. They could walk to school and it could be a safe trip because it was a 2-minute walk. But now they're outside of our communities. They defunded our schools, they shut them down. Those schools are now just abandoned buildings. They also took all the hospitals we have now. Do you know how many Black women die? Black pregnant women die because those white doctors don't care. They're only helping the system. All they care about is the system. We need to make sure that our Black brothers and sisters are getting the education they need. I shouldn't have to go outside of the school community, my district, where I am safe. I am not safe around all those people. They don't care about me. They are insensitive to my feelings and my experiences because I'm not benefiting them. Though me thriving is not helping them in any way. We need to uplift our communities. They put these power plants and let off these toxic greenhouse gases. They are killing us. This is one of the reasons I have asthma as a Black woman in America. Why do Black people have some of the highest asthma rates? Because they put those plants, they let out trash into our communities. This should not be something that exists. They do all this and they ask for us, they ask for our taxpaying dollars. But why are they spending $618 million to fund little projects that are costing each about $2 million?
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Okay, we have one more in-person public comment, Gwen Howard, and then we will move to the folks in the virtual audience. You have their names? Okay.
Good evening, panel. Good to see you all and give honor to the Honorable Joanne Watson, to my pastor, Pastor Alonzo Bell, pastor of Martin Evers Missionary Baptist Church and founder of Redeemed Detroit. 2 minutes, I probably needed 2 days, but I am gonna say, just to touch on one particular thing. My mom passed in 2014.
She had 8 awesome children that paid her house off when she turned 65. She was 83 when she died, had no idea. Predatory lenders had come through their neighborhood. And when she passed, the house that we thought was paid for, she had $117,000 more, $117,000 mortgage. She she lived in the Boston Edison area. We had no idea that you gave a mortgage to an 80-year-old woman. She died at 83. We discovered this after the fact. Reparations now, you owe those people in that neighborhood their lineage, their ancestors, their children, their grandchildren. You owe them that money back because we're paying a mortgage off that we paid off in 1972 or something like that. But I'm saying that they did this to our communities. When I grew up in Detroit, the people that look like me own the grocery stores, Farmer Jack's, A&P. The people that look like me own the gas stations on the corner. People that look like me watched our children go to school every day because the schools were in our neighborhood. So I know that Detroit has the largest population of Detroit public schools with the poorest attendance because attendance is not a priority in their households. Housing is. Food is. So how you going to take my kid to school if he don't have any shoes, if he doesn't have any food to eat? So that's why we are in the position that we're in, because we do need funding to our Detroit public schools. It needs to go back to Detroit public schools, not this community or whatever the new name is. So if you go back to public school, because public schools make the neighborhoods. So if you put the money in education and then you put it in our children, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take the first virtual public comment. William M. Davis.
Good evening. I'd like to start off by saying, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to start off by saying that the Detroit bankruptcy was a grand theft of Black assets. Our DIA, our bailout, Detroit Water and Sewage Department. I'm a City of Detroit retiree. I worked for the city for 34 years. But there are some people who work for the city for 20, 30, 40 years and was robbed and continue to be robbed every month. Because with not only did they say that we owed X amount of money when this bankruptcy came as a recruitment, but they added 6.75% on it, which meant that you may have already paid back the amount they said, what they made up that you owed. But this 6.75% is a death threat to all of us. Do you know since 2018, over 1,050 City of Detroit retirees from the general fund have died? That's, so I can say up under this particular mayor's administration, his hands are bloody because more Black people have died because the recruitment was targeted especially for Black people that started working. It was some white people too, not just, but it was, some white people, but Black people that started working they got that 30 years in after Coleman Young was working, became mayor. Because prior to 1974, there was Black people working for the city, but the vast majority was white. Today, the vast majority of the City of Detroit retirees that's paying the recruitment are Black. Do the math. This is a racist system, and every month if nothing is done, more of us die. Something needs to be done. We have a white mayor that's a millionaire, the son of a Republican appointee that do not care about Black people, especially poor Black people. We need help. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Detroit Affordable and Homeless Task Force.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. Big props to Dr. Joanne Watson, Reverend Dr. Watson, and to Angela Whitfield Calloway, who want the restoration of all assets to Detroiters that was stolen from the illegal, unconstitutional bankruptcy. We want all former enslavers to pay into a monetary fund to provide monetary payments to the descendants. J.P. Morgan Chase need to pay, Bank of America, as Mr. Goldberg said, all of them. need to pay into a fund. The universities, they stole from our people as well. We want to return of Detroit Public Schools to its natural form. We want Detroit Public Schools to receive their radio station back, 90.9 FM. It was PR. And we want that's stolen and now called WCJR. We want that back. We want our cable company back. It used to be Barton Cable. Give us our cable, our communication system back. That's what we want. We want the homes that are stolen through the illegal foreclosures and repay the $1 billion stolen through the illegal assessments. We want home repairs as a result. And we want bailout and everything that was stolen under the fake bankruptcy, our water system, the electric system. We want everything returned back to us that was stolen out of the fake bankruptcy, and everybody knows it's fake. We want also the universities to give free college for everybody Black. We want everybody to get a car because Ford, GM, Chrysler, and now Stellantis, all of them owe reparations. Everybody needs transportation because the transportation system here in Detroit is illegal. It sucks all up our resources and gives us nothing in return. And we want right now to return to a system that is free.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Marguerite Scarlett Maddox.
Good evening and welcome. I am a person with a disability. And I can tell you stories about my grandmother. She was 93 when she passed in 2002. But I would love to see everyone, including my ancestors, which is American Indian, be indebted. The money that they owe us. Thank you, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. If you can drop some comments in the text, I want to make sure that we understood everything that you were trying to convey. So if you can drop that in the message section, that would be great. Can they have that access? Okay. Okay, submit it via email. I'm sorry, the text option isn't available. The next speaker is We the People of Detroit.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and to the Reparations Task Force. We are extremely grateful for this day and want to thank and honor all that have contributed to bringing it to fruition. But I would like to ask, for those that may not know, I'm Monica Lewis Patrick, and I serve as the president and CEO of We the People of Detroit. We're a small nonprofit here in the city, but doing a mighty work for the human right to water. And what we know is that reparations must include the human right to clean, safe, and affordable water. And we know that Detroit has struggled with this issue in the past. We know that we still have a long way to go to build toward that necessary equity and justice. We also believe that jobs, contracts, and training must be embedded in the plan for moving the city forward, especially on the issue of water and water justice, water reparations. And we would ask the task force to consider not only bringing forth a committee or at least a presentation or a body of work that would inform this particular task force in terms of not only the public health components, what can be done there in terms of the economic opportunities, and then also how do we build in terms of forward trajectory to ensure that all Detroiters have access to water that is clean, safe, and affordable. But thank you so much for my time, and I'm more than willing to do whatever I can do to serve to help move the table forward.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. You know, we'll be reaching out for a presentation. Next speaker is Renard. Some last name that starts with an M. What does it say, Paris? What's his last name? Munchansky. Renard Munchansky. Oh, he dropped off? Okay. All right, next speaker, Ernest Russell.
Greetings, Detroit Task Force members. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm commenting today to let the Detroit Task Force know that the Evanston model in Illinois is not a model that should be followed by the city of Detroit. While the Evanston effort is commendable, true repair for redlining and other forms of economic discrimination is not simply the awarding of $25,000 housing vouchers to only 16 individuals. Now, if you were to consider something like that in the state of Detroit, the city of Detroit, I'm pretty sure we would see wide pushback from the public if only 16 individuals were to be compensated from an actual reparative initiative. In addition, I ask that the city of Detroit prioritize the sentence of persons enslaved in any reparative proposals created by this body. Moreover, I ask the city of Detroit to consider the St. Paul's reparations model in Ordinance 2252, which established a permanent commission to work on short-term and long-term solutions with the mayor of St. Paul for true generational repair. The pensions robbed, as mentioned earlier by different commenters, the pensions robbed from Detroit retirees, the illegal unconstitutional bankruptcy and disenfranchisement of Black voters by way of the emergency managers calls for the Detroit Task Force to recommend the state of Michigan, which has a Democratic supermajority, to also come up with their own commissions and proposals for their hand in the destruction of American freedom communities. My last comments are aimed at the revenue sources intended to fund proposed programs. I think one of the greatest challenges you will face as a body is creating housing and economic programs that do not create additional tax burdens for the Black residents of Detroit, who we already know are economically deprived. Now is the time for the Detroit Task Force to be bold in the repairing of Black families that have been harmed generationally by the city of Detroit, state of Michigan, and United States government. And I am calling as a founder of the Freedom Agenda League of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Janelle Page. Jerry Page. I said Jerry.
Hello, can you hear me? It's actually Gerard Page.
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes, I'm representing the Freedom Agenda League of Michigan. I have a statement to read. The Freedom Agenda League of Michigan was formed in 2021 to cultivate, demand, and lead reparation initiatives in the state of Michigan and beyond. We believe reparations is the inescapable heartbeat of all Black politics in America, and without it, America cannot truly address the historical justice brought upon our families. As Americans, we demand the full rights of citizenship promised to us at our birth and prosperity long denied. As living descendants, we believe more advocacy and action is not only needed, but required in order to turn the tides of oppression we face. We who are the descendants of noble, brave men and women who were enslaved recognize the debt owed to our families for 256 years of slavery, 90 years of Jim Crow, 60 years of separate but equal, and 35 years of sanctioned redlining. While we thank the city for taking the first steps in Michigan toward repair, we do not believe in housing or economic programs that benefit a few descendants while ignoring the majority of them. Programs such as these will not lead to the repair we require as people at a municipal level. We know too well that counties and municipalities should pursue reparations are faced with a dilemma, and therefore has one of your proposals include a recommendation to the state government of Michigan and federal government of the United States of America to develop their own commissions and proposals to assist in the repair of American freedom. In addition, we believe it's important to note that the city of Detroit is unique from other cities who have pursued repair in their own city so far, with a vast number of Black residents, 76 plus, according to the recent ACS data collection. For any questions regarding this letter, we ask that you contact our communications team at freemanleague@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Monique Baker McCormick.
Good evening. This is Monique Baker McCormick, Wayne County Commissioner. I just want to commend this commission on the work that you're going to do and let you know that I have your back and I am 100% in support, and whatever I can do to assist, please reach out to me. I am here to do what I can to help move this commission forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next speaker is Tula Cabone.
Hello, good day, everyone. How's everyone? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First, I want to pay homage to our ancestors who was kidnapped and brought from Africa over to America in 1619. And I want to pay homage to those who sit on this panel, because right now, you are the modern day emancipation force concerning reparations for slavery. In April 1852, our former president, Abraham Lincoln, and you can Google this, gave Confederate slave owners $300 if they agreed to join, if they agreed to let their slaves go and allow them, and then became friendly with the Union Army. 1852, our United States government passed the Fugitive Slave Act, which stated if any slave was escaped from slavery and ran to a free state, the United States government had an obligation to return them back to their slave master, and they were required to hunt them down. Now, I get it. Slavery was horrific. And when I tell people who's against reparations, I say, well, let me take you for 2 years and lock you up and work for me like you feel. Things was horrific. We were here attacked United States. 1988, the United States government gave Japanese Americans internment camps in 1942. They gave them reparations. They gave them $20,000 per person that was alive, which equal to $1.2 billion. And Ronald Reagan apologized to them. So I'm saying this fast. I appreciate everybody on this board, but right now, you are the emancipations of reparations. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabone. Next up, we have Kofi Kenyatta.
Can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. My name is Kofi Kenyatta, and I am the Senior Policy Director for Up Together. Reparations can mean a lot of things, but it must include no strings attached, direct cash to Black people, and systemic change throughout all levels of government. Small-scale programming will not suffice. I am a native son of Detroit and a son of the Black Liberation Movement. I have seen firsthand the impact of systemic racism and inequality in our community, from redlining to present-day plantation politics. Our city has long and painful history of discrimination against Black people. The time for reparations is long overdue. I believe that the Detroit Reparations Task Force is necessary towards healing the wounds of our past and building a more equitable future. Over the next 18 months, I hope to see this task force prioritize the following actions. Firstly, I hope the task force will conduct a thorough investigation into the harm caused by Detroiters by local mortgage companies, the city itself, the state of Michigan, Wayne County, and the U.S. government. It is essential that we fully understand the extent of the damage that has been done and who has been most affected. Secondly, I hope the task force will work to identify and recommend reparative measures that will address the systemic inequalities that exist today. Poverty plagues this majority Black city and has for far too long. Lastly, I hope the task force will continue to prioritize community engagement and participation throughout this process. It is essential that the most affected by the harm caused by systemic racism and discrimination have a voice in the decision-making process. I am proud to stand with the fellow Detroiters and support of the Detroit Reparations Task Force. Let's work together, and I'm able to provide my support and resources to make sure that this is happening for the people of the city of Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last virtual speaker, Tanae Hankins.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for so much for having a task force. I applied to get on it, didn't make it obviously, but I am so proud and so happy of the members on the force. Some of you I know and have worked with, some of you I don't, but I feel okay. I feel good, and I want you all to know that there's a lot of us out there that feel that we're in good hands. But I want to make an important point. I suggest that at the end of 18 months, the results that we want be decided right away. And we approach the 18th month, not as a ask you, please, can you give me, but a definitive point that we have decided to come together, to resource, to find the money for the market, and to get attorneys to make sure it happens, whether the mayor or whoever's in power accepts the reparations task force recommendations or not. I think we can do it simultaneously. It makes no sense putting these resources and these minds together and the community cooperation together with something that if it doesn't, if we're not giving permission to somebody don't agree with it, that's the end of it. We should be working simultaneously on marketing, as the brother just explained, in terms of getting people involved and getting aware. And we need legal background. It's about the money, people. It's an insult to tell me, for what I've had my ancestors go through, that we need the presumption that we need counseling and all of that. No, it's about cash. Let me decide what to do with the $12,000. I stopped counting at $12,000 in terms of me being overtaxed. As a family, one holiday, we said we could have sent our nephew to Morehouse with what we were overtaxed. Okay, let's use this opportunity to build a movement where we can legally get what we want and put the financial behind it for groups that are doing the work.
Thank you.
Doing the work.
Thank you, Ms. Hankins. All right, that concludes our public comment. I do want to give that email address. Primarily, this is for Ms. Maddox, so she can send in her comments. But I suppose it doesn't preclude other people from writing down your email address, Paris. The email address is blessmanp, so that's BLESSMANP @DetroitMI.gov. So before we close out and talk about next steps, I wanted to look to the rest of the task force. Does anybody have comments or reflections that we want to get on the record before we close out?
Madam Chair,
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
As the public comments were made, there was a transcription of those that came across the screen. Is that transcription captured, or is it just an artifact of the Zoom?
Paris?
Okay, because if it is captured, I would like to make a motion that the comments become part of our permanent record.
Certainly, we can do that. Okay, so we'll look into it. At the very least, the recording will be available, and I suppose someone could watch it and take the transcription.
Yeah, the preserved record is the issue.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Duly noted. Mama Watson, you had a comment?
Madam Chair, I want to first of all thank everybody who participated in public comment. Everybody, thank you. It's the public who voted for the reparations referendum that created our positions. So we acknowledge those who voted. They voted in greater numbers than they voted for any person running for office. So the reparations clearly is a priority for the city of Detroit. There were a number of those who spoke, who offered their resources, offered their talent and time and expertise in helping us with data resources, with research. And I believe we should accept those who offered it and do it formally.
and create a path for them to do their work. Several of them are outstanding, longtime veteran leaders in this community, and we should immediately seize that opportunity. I'm happy to offer my service. I took notes of who said I want to help. Me too. And I believe we should follow up on that immediately, because many of those persons, we need their resources, we need their input in order to fully develop our outcome within 18 months. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you,
Madam
Mom
Chair.
Watson. Who's that? Oh, this. Oh, go ahead, Dana.
Right, and this is for Ms. Blessman with Media Services. I'm not sure how they set up this Zoom, but typically you have to capture that transcript before you close it out. So I don't know if it'll be available on replay, but typically you have to, before they shut down the Zoom, download the transcript. Thank you.
And one last question I had for a person that spoke. There is a young lady. Are you old enough to vote? How old are you? I'm sorry. If you couldn't hear her, she said she's 14 years old and in the 8th grade. Thank you, because you didn't vote for it, but hold us accountable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Go ahead, Keith.
You know, I'm feeling that all the work that we put into this in 2001 is going to come to fruition. And I say, work with us. We're going to get it done, because I didn't get in this to fail. And so I've been in Detroit all my life, and I just want to see fair. I want to see some equitable kind of things that happen that we should have. And so just wait, and we're going to get it done. I'm just letting the public know. But we have to get a better understanding of what's federal reparations and what's local reparations, and try to bring it all together and get a better understanding of it. So God bless everybody. We're going to get it done.
And I want to thank everybody for your patience as we navigate this extremely awkward process. You know, again, it's a new thing that hasn't been done before. So everything you see before you is, we're figuring it out in real time, So bear with us. For next steps, we have all agreed that we need a frequency of meetings in the early stages that we might not maintain throughout, but we were going to meet for every 2 weeks initially. So the next meeting we have on our calendar is Thursday, April 27th, again at 4:00. And on my calendar invite, it says City Hall again. Did we agree on another City Hall meeting? Right.
So, hey, Lauren.
Yep, go ahead, Sydney.
It's Sydney. Hey, so we sent out an email, and we actually probably should bring this back up to the table to have a definitive vote on the date and time that we're meeting. It was proposed in our last meeting that we did Tuesdays at 4 or 5. The calendar invite that you do have may be a little off, so my apologies for that. But I did send out a meeting request for Tuesdays between 4 and 5. So I'll have to check my calendar to confirm. But if we want to bring that up and actually have like a discussion surrounding, so we can get something in concrete on the calendars, we probably should do that.
Well, let's do that now, folks. What do we like? Do we like Tuesdays? I remember there was some discussion and we all agreed that it was a day that worked, but is that when you have your radio show?
That's on Wednesday.
That's on Wednesday. Okay. Does Tuesday work for everybody at 4:00 to 6:00?
Yes.
Depends on where it is.
Who said depends on where it is?
Me.
Okay. All right. Well,
Chair.
do we need to vote on that? Let's move on Tuesdays at 6 as our new voting time. Is there a motion? Support. And supported. All those in favor respond with the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any nays? You and I, Keith?
Yeah.
Okay. Tuesdays from 4 to 6 is now our new meeting time. And we did agree that we would go to different locations that represent each of the districts across the city. Do we have a vote for where we start? Do we think we need to go in order? Dorian, you look like you have an opinion. What?
Tuesday at 6.
Oh, sorry, Tuesday 4 to 6. Tuesday 4 to 6. Oh, it does not. Okay, sorry, we need more discussion.
What works for
He
you?
said 4 to 6 does not work for him.
4 to 6 does not work for me.
We can just keep it at Thursday.
Well, it's up for discussion in the mic.
Can we just keep it at Thursdays? Yes. 4 to 6.
I can make it work.
Does that work?
We can't please everybody, but yeah,
that works.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that I might be the only person that has a conflict on Thursday evenings.
Okay.
Every Thursday?
What about like a Wednesday or a Friday?
Friday?
Is it every Thursday?
It's every Thursday.
Okay.
Does Friday work for everyone?
Does anyone have an objection to a Friday meeting, 4 to 6? I can't see everybody. 4 to 6, good for you?
Madam Chair, one caveat, as we move forward into the fall, winter months, I would just request that we do daylight hours, something, the 4-week stay at the 4, we did talk about that. So
Okay.
right now, if we need to move it later, if that will help some of our task force members while it's daylight, but after the fall, winter.
So you're saying move it to an earlier hour?
No,
when it
later
gets-
hour if they need that,
A
such
later hour.
as Sydney has a conflict. So would later during the summer months while it's still light outside, would that work for you? Would that help you with your schedule? This is for Sydney.
You're asking Sydney? 1 second.
She says she has a conflict on Thursdays, which seems to work better.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so the conflict on Thursday is like my job. They've been awfully lenient with these first few 4 o'clock meetings. But moving forward, it might be very tough for me to join via Zoom or in person.
so what hour would be better for you if Thursday is better for majority?
I don't want to make it any later, so I really wanted to stay between 4, 5, and 6 for start times. So it would probably be like 6 o'clock, 6:30 ish. But I know that's really late. Depending on if we do like 2 hours, 6:30 to 8:30, maybe late, especially going into those winter hours. So I just want to be cognizant of that.
Excuse me, Madam
Can
Chair.
we,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair,
go ahead.
if I can suggest that we kind of take these in kind of like little subsections that we kind of, what we ultimately interested in doing is engaging the community in a dialogue. And one of the things that's going to be important for that is the community have some real certainty as to when we're going to meet
Correct.
and where we're going to meet.
Correct.
So if we would look at maybe trying to hammer out a schedule, let's say for 2 months, and that essentially takes us around the city, given the arrangements we have, and then publish that, and then we can get back to other kind of adjustments based upon the experience that we have over that 2-month period.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. I think though that if we are going to do the every 2 weeks, we should at least get the next meeting locked down before we leave.
Sure.
Just so that people can organize their schedules around it. So I can organize my schedule around it. 2 weeks is like the limit.
Yeah.
So,
I thought when we had
Madam
the
Chair.
discussion,
Yeah.
you're talking about District 1
okay.
would be 4. I mean, that's what I thought. So I don't know what District 1 says about it.
You had to leave. Okay, Keith, go ahead.
This is not a perfect storm, a perfect situation. I got times, that I can't do it, but I'll work around my schedule. We're in here to get something done. Okay, it's good. I know everybody got issues and they got to do what they have to do, but let's try to come together so we can go to the public and talk about what we're trying to do to solve some issues for them, not for yourself. That's how I feel about it.
I would say at the very least, before we close out this meeting, we need to have the second meeting on the schedule if we're trying to do it in 2 weeks.
Let's do it Friday, the next 2 weeks from the Friday, if that accommodates everybody.
Are there any objections to Friday?
No.
What date would that be?
We're looking at Friday, the 28th of April. Okay. Any objections?
No objection.
With a location.
We do not have a location, and we were going to go in order of the districts, but I see our District 1 person has left. Dr. Robinson, do you have a District 2 location that we can have this public meeting at? And remember, our criteria requires seating for at least 50 people, and we need the audio-visual capabilities to do Zoom. Can we do it at your school?
No, you don't want to do it at my school.
Okay.
I had proposed that we would engage Renaissance High School.
Okay.
I've already contacted the community use department to get the auditorium made available. I can revisit that and let you know for that date. Now, would that be a date for the Friday meeting? I mean, we
Friday the 28th. Friday the 28th, 4 to 6.
I will confirm that tomorrow, and we're going to go with the 28th of Friday, 28th of April.
Yep.
I will look into that.
I'll talk to Dr. about your many companies.
Right across the street. So I mean, either one. Yeah.
Fantastic. So for members of our viewing public, just please block out in your calendars Friday, April 28th from 4 to 6 p.m. Location forthcoming. Do we need to discuss how do we get information to people? Can you post it on the website, the city's website? Okay. So if you Google Reparations, City of Detroit website, we'll post it on Council President's page, the location for the next meeting. Anything else before we close out? We're taking baby steps. So we have the one baby step from this meeting is that we have a meeting on the 28th from 4 to 6. And we will update you with a more comprehensive calendar at that time. Are there any other comments before we close out?
Yeah, one other thing. I'm assuming I didn't see a sign in or anything like that. For people who were here,
that's a good
if they want to be notified, I mean, they would have to leave some information with us so that we can at least update them as to this next meeting.
That is a fantastic idea. I'm looking around. Did Brian leave? Who can we get to create a signage? That's what I'm looking for. Okay. We're going to be real random about this. We're going to put a piece of paper up here by this entrance where you can leave your name and email address so that we can contact you with updates. Correct. No, ma'am.
The next meeting.
No, ma'am. Just people who want to participate in the dialogue at this next session.
Minimum.
Okay, if there are no other comments from my fellow task force members, and this is a really awkward way to look at people. Yeah, moved and supported. All those in favor respond with the sign of aye. Aye. A meeting officially adjourned at 6:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Oh, Lord.
How long was that going on, y'all? Missed some of it. Chanel, you there? What's up, Jules?
Hello?
What's going on?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it was under 2 hours.
Okay. Oh, man. How you doing today, man?
Yeah,
Trying to catch up on rest. I haven't been getting a lot of sleep.
Oh, damn. Sorry to hear that. I think I've been having weird sleep patterns too, man. Like changing seasons or whatever.
Oh, is that what it is?
I guess.
My allergies been killing me.
Well, that's so. I know I've been waking up like crazy hours. Waking up like 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Okay, not be able to go to sleep.
Yeah. What was that? What was that lady talking about with the kid? Like, are you old enough to vote?
I don't know what that was about. That was weird. I don't know what that really had to do with anything.
Well, was that one of the task force members asking that?
I'm not sure. I wasn't really looking at the video. I was just listening.
Yeah, I'm like, who's like, what was the point of them asking that?
I thought the young woman had spoke, and I thought they were asking her how old she was. I thought they were saying like basically like, I mean, this is me assuming. I really don't even know. I'm assuming that she spoke. Maybe she didn't, and then they were asking her was she old enough to vote, meaning like you're a young person who's like aware and committed. Maybe that was my interpretation.
I took it as shaming.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't.
That's how it came across to me, but I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't really get the whole exchange. I mean, it could have been. I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed like they took offense to something she said.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, I was moving around too, so I don't know everything that she said. I just heard that response, and I'm like, why they doing the alley-oop 360 dunk on her?
That was interesting. I was hearing a lot of people like in the early days of the California task force. I was hearing a lot of people asking for stuff that had nothing to do with reparations.
Yeah, I heard black and people of color.
Yeah,
like I get, but you don't need to say that when it comes to reparations.
Yeah,
it's a whole different conversation.
Exactly. One lady was talking about the trash. I'm like,
yeah, I don't know what that was about.
Reparations. What? She said y'all.
Right. So I'm like, who are you?
She said y'all.
Yeah. She must be Latina or something.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Chanel would know. What's the demographics like in Detroit? What is it? It's black and Jewish. Maybe she's half Jewish. She don't claim black.
Okay, so B-Man, B1 agrees with you, Jules. So I must have missed that exchange.
Yeah, I feel like if it was a comment of respect, they would have said something different than how old are you and are you even old enough to vote?
Okay.
I feel like they would have said, oh, well, props to you for staying aware of what's going on politically at your young age or something like that. Like,
yeah,
not like, are you even old enough to vote? Like, how old are you?
Oh, it's older family? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you missed it. You're too busy
Hold
making
on,
your
hold
chicken.
on, hold on.